Hey, welcome to Riverside. Today, I actually have an interview for you that I did with Zeb and Brittany. They're a married couple who are really into fly fishing. He actually designs and creates fly rods, which I find fascinating. And she runs a blog and podcast called Somewhere on a Stream. You can actually find them on Instagram at OK This Is My Life Now and him at Snowman Custom Rod Works. And it was a fascinating conversation. We talked about faith, fly fishing, how to design a fly rod, the process behind that. We talked about how fly fishing plays into their faith and their marriage, and how faith plays into fly fishing and all that stuff. Really good conversation. But I will say, fly fishing, like podcasting, is a learning process. And I don't know what happened, but the beginning of the interview actually got cut off. Luckily, I caught it early. But the beginning of the interview got cut off. When it picks up, when you first hear it, Zeb is talking about the process of building a fly rod, just to give you some context. I don't know what happened. I think I figured it out, but I could be wrong. But like I said, it's a learning curve, and instead of throwing this entire interview out the window, I figured I'd cut my losses and see what I can scrounge together. So here we are. So this is the interview with Zeb and Brittany. I hope you enjoy, and here we go.
I really love the feel of the three weight that I have with you, and I kind of want to go this direction with it. So I'm thinking digressive again. I just want power up front, real handsy feel, and we talked more about it in specifics, like dimensionally. And he came back. He goes, "Well, I got a working example for you if you want to take a look at it."
Okay.
At that point, you just start fishing it and you say, yeah, this is what I was after. No, this is not what I was after. And,
Okay.
feels kind of overpowered in the mid body or whatever and kind of
Okay.
down.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh, I was looking back through signatures and this is like year 12.
You're 12. That's a long time. That's
Yeah.
really cool. And like, have you always been into fly fishing and fishing, or is it just kind of something you just took on and 12 years ago? How'd that start?
I've been around fly fishing for I think 15 now. Um,
Okay.
when I think I was a year or two in, I had a pretty, I would call it a major operation.
Okay.
And at
I
that
think
time,
everybody would call it a major operation.
I had my spine fused.
Whoa.
Yeah. So at the time, I was pinstriping and like pinstriping hot rods and stuff like that. And for me to be able to bend my neck and everything, I couldn't do it. But
Okay.
I had met a couple rod builders kind of prior to that, and I always thought, I'm like, I can do this pretty easily, and with a lot of stuff going on with my spine, I'm like, oh,
Okay.
God,
He's somebody that always needs a creative process going.
That's
So,
me.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it drives me nuts.
I'm the same way.
Hmm.
And that's why stuff like this, with like Riverside or whatever, is like I'm a youth minister, and it's not always the most creative, but I have to have something that I'm doing, and I'm always thinking about stuff constantly. My brain's never stopped thinking about making content or like what to do or how to create it, make it better, whatever it is. But
Hmm.
so how do you build the fly rod? Where do you even start with that?
It depends. If
Okay.
if you do it simple and logical, you pretty much start with the back end and work your way forward. So,
Okay.
reel seed, cork, stuff like that, and then at that point, you start wrapping in. My process begins with um, usually a reel or a notion, and then at that point, I have to figure out. I make all my own hardware. I make most of that stuff, and I kind of start figuring out, well, how much weight can I afford? You know, so if I got a 4 ounce reel, I don't have a lot of space for you know, heavier hardware and stuff like that. Or if it's a 2 ounce,
Okay.
then I'm like, "Ah, I can put a lot more metal into it. And I don't know. That's kind of the way I think, and I think about um, who's going to cast it and where. So is the line going to be, slightly overlined? Do they want the rod slower? And that's how I kind of pick my guide spacing and profile.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It
it's
all starts with a blank. It
Okay.
starts
it's
with a
more
rod
engineering.
blank, and then kind of the vision starts to come together, and his methods are very like very precise.
Well,
Very.
that's what's crazy is I was looking at your rods on your Instagram page, and it's like I don't even know if I'd fish them. It's almost like little works of art. I mean, really, it's crazy.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
seen me throw them.
Yeah.
Really.
It's not a big deal.
I may have thrown one.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no, they're meant to be fished. One of the things I love about fishing Zeb's rods is that that they're so enduring that
Okay.
like his finish is so good, like the way he constructs everything is so good that like you can beat it up more than a regular, like I don't know, maybe not more than a regular rod, but like as much as you would anything else, and it's not
Okay.
gonna affect the rod.
and
I mean, you're gonna wear your cork and that's about it, but
a lot of the materials that I build with too are designed to age in.
Okay.
So, I mean, I know more than a handful. I know a few dozen that live in an office on display, and they look like the day I built it. Meanwhile, if you look at the ones that I have that I've built, you know, first of all, they weren't the best example of my work because I just hacked them together and want to get out and fish them. But they weather in and they show that they've been out there living life.
Okay.
They patina, they take age, and I'm not an epoxy guy. I'm more of a varnish guy. So my finish
Okay.
is gonna shrink, and it's gonna look like more a heritage rod when it's you know
Okay.
8, 10, or 10,000 fish old.
Mhm.
Okay. And you said you did hot rods before fly rods?
I pinstriped.
Really?
Yeah,
That's awesome. You have a steady hands then, right?
yeah, pretty. I guess steadier. I mean, I'm kind of learning now that I need reading glasses, so that's a new addition.
Yeah. I'm getting there too. I need glasses for TV, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
I just did it like what 4 months ago. I got reading glasses, and I'm like, man, I've been missing out on a lot for a long time.
Yeah. He kept
Yeah.
telling me like my vision's going like, it was like doomsday, and then he got reading glasses. He's like, never mind, I can see.
Yeah,
I'm
It
fine.
definitely helps.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I see the fly tying advice, and I will
Yeah.
tie like what 2, 3, 4 times a year. But when I tie, it's like 200, 400 flies at a time.
He
It's a
like
And
lot.
fills both of our boxes in one sitting and then
and
doesn't
That's
do it
wild.
again for like 3 months.
and right before her birthday of last year, at this point, we went away for the weekend, and
Mhm.
one of her birthday gifts was I tied her a full box, and I did it without glasses,
Mhm.
and I could probably do it in a quarter of the time now because it was all
Okay.
small stuff, and I'm like, why didn't you just do this sooner? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, cool. Where y'all from? What part of the country?
We're in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
What's the fishing like there? Y'all got a lot of trout up there, right?
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We're
I
always
wish,
after
because
like
I'm
wild.
in Louisville and like there's no trout.
No,
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. What do you guys? You have like bass.
Yeah, we have a lot of bass, a lot of smallmouth and largemouth, and then like panfish. I like panfish,
Hmm.
and then a lot of people are into catfishing. But I've caught some catfish on the fly rod, but it's not the most fun.
Yeah. That's like when we catch
But
suckers on the fly rod
there
here.
there is an artist very local to us who he targets catfish on the Three Rivers, and
really,
yeah, and he's broken a handful of rods, 10 weights trying to get them in, and
Is it that one guy that his wife is
Alessio.
sick?
No,
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
yeah,
yeah. So what's y'all's favorite fish to target then?
I like big brown trout,
Brown trout.
but I think anything wild to me, that's
Yeah.
my no. I'd rather catch a tiny wild brook trout than a stocked brown trout. I'll put
yeah.
it that way. So, what about you?
Mine's brown trout too. I'm exposed a lot more to wild rainbow and wild
Okay.
native brook trout, and I don't know. Brown seem like more of a treat than the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I grew up in northern Michigan, and my dad was a fly fisherman, and um, he was friends with a woman who held the state record for brown trout in Michigan
I
for
bet that
a
was
while. I don't know
massive.
how long she held it, but it was a big fish, and she caught it above the dam. So it was not a lake big brown. It was a true grown in the river, in the Manistee River, big brown trout. And that was like family legend growing up. And
Yeah.
she still lives up there. She's still in northern Michigan. But I think that always stuck with me. Like I want to go catch a big brown in some river,
Yeah.
like in a stream.
And I think PA, that's your best shot at a big fish is still going to be a brown trout,
Hmm.
Okay.
and that's in Pennsylvania. That's my biggest, and that's 31, 32 inches.
Okay. See, that's like unheard of here. Like, we have a few places to fish for trout here in Louisville. Like one's Otter Creek, one's Floyd's Fork, but then like they're all stocked. No, they don't get big, and then usually, since they're public waters, they get fished out almost instantly. It's really terrible. Like it's not fun, and so that's why anymore I don't even really target trout much. I do a little bit, but these days it's honestly these days panfish. I love catching bluegill.
It's
Go out there and catch some bluegill. They'll eat all day, and it's fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
like
I love
in
catching.
my head, I don't get to go fishing super often. So when I do, I want to catch something. And bluegill are the dumbest fish ever. They'll eat literally anything.
yeah,
Yes,
bluegill you'll get off zero in usually the first 2 minutes.
I know.
Yeah,
Even the babies, they'll like hunt. Like I'll use a woolly bugger that's like way too big because I've been trying to when I go and visit my nephew and my nieces, I'll try to take a fly rod that they could cast if they wanted to, and throw on like a big woolly bugger that they can see, and the baby like these tiny little bluegill will like hunt in packs together, and they'll like attack it all at once
yeah,
because they can't like put their mouths on it, but they'll like
yeah.
attack it together. So
Have you
Well,
done
cool.
have you done bluegill on poppers?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're
Oh,
fun.
that is so great.
It's a blast. And I tell you, pound for pound, bluegills fight hard. They really do.
Oh yeah, I've had them double up like three weights, and I'm like, this is a good. Oh, it's just no.
just a really angry
It's just the average
bluegill.
bluegill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, three. Yeah, I always try to do a three-way because it feels like it feels like you're catching a monster.
Yeah.
Cool bluegill, but it's fun. I tell you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So Brittany, you run a podcast. It's a podcast too, right?
Yeah, well, I record so I write it and then you just record it too because I know I don't think I set out to have a podcast, but
Okay.
I knew that some of my subscribers are really busy and the only chance they get to like consume anything is when they're in the car or like in the kitchen or something. So I was like, well, I'll just record this. And I had
Yeah.
my sister-in-law in mind specifically because I know she listens to a lot of stuff. So
Okay.
I was like, I'll record this so at least she'll get it. And then,
There you go.
yeah, now I find that like it's about like 50-50 people are listening or
Okay.
reading. So yeah,
And how did that start?
that's a good question. So it's I guess I'll go backwards a little bit. So I started fly fishing back during COVID.
Okay.
I just started going stir crazy indoors and was isolated and so tired of masking and so tired of just being like confined and told what to do. And so
Preach.
I know. So I was like, I need an outlet and I really want to start fishing. My dad's health was kind of declining, and I knew if I wanted to learn how to fly fish and have him be part of it, like I wanted to grab that window while I could. And
Yeah.
so I started fishing and found this like whole world of people who were going outside and living life like like COVID wasn't happening. And I absolutely loved it. So it kept me returning to the stream like week after week. So I found a lot of like spiritual solace in fly fishing, in habits around fly fishing, and I started writing about it on my Instagram, just like here's some lessons we can learn about fly fishing or about God from fly fishing. Sorry, this is Glenn, by the
Well,
way.
that's why I was like, ooh, a dog.
Yeah, he's a very sweet.
Was he a golden?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love goldens.
Yeah, he's a little bit needy, but he's very sweet. But so I started writing and just sharing some of the revelations I was having when I was out fishing, and I'd be like, "This is what I was praying about today. This is what I really saw from like fly fishing and what it reminded me of in the Word." And so I'd post it, and people really enjoyed it. And I wanted to start writing a little bit longer, but didn't feel like I had time. And last year, my dad ended up passing away from ALS,
Mm,
and he had written a newsletter back when he was a fly fishing guide in like the late 80s, early 90s,
really?
called The Quiet Rodman. And it was a play on the Quiet Airman, if you know about that, like Society of Pilots.
I don't know.
My uncle was a quiet airman, I think, and so my dad started the Quiet Rodman newsletter, and his tagline was "Somewhere in the north, somewhere by a stream," and I after going through his stuff and just I think something happens when you lose somebody you're close to and you start like going through their stuff, and I was finding just like this depth of a connection with him that I already knew was there, but like
Hmm.
just becomes a little bit more urgent when
Yeah.
something passes. And so I was already writing more, and in July, I gave up alcohol completely. Like not for any specific like life ruining reason or anything like that.
Right.
I just didn't really want it anymore. Didn't really want it in my
Fair
life
enough.
anymore, and really felt like it would be more sanctifying, to have it gone. And so that's a whole other story. But I was working with this coach who, like, she was like, well, here's some mindfulness to, get rid of it completely or think about. And I was like, I came back a week later. I was like, I did all those mindfulness questions and I like never want to drink again. So I like never want this stuff in my life again. And so we spent like the rest of the coaching stint. That was like week one of the coaching, and then we spent the rest of it just digging into like what life could be like when you have time and energy and something not like pouring more cortisol into your system and sucking your energy away. So
Right.
I'm saying this, Zeb's totally drinking a cider, but I like started. She goes, "You should," and I talked to her about how I'd always wanted to be a writer, and like that was just on my heart more than anything else was to write and to speak and to just and specifically like God's word. And she's like, "Start a Substack. Like here's a platform for you. Like
Yeah.
just start one." And so I ended up starting one, and I write about just like connections between what I see in nature and what I know about God, and how those things how like just being well versed in the word, that like going out in nature after reading the Bible for so long, I was like, whoa, like God is everywhere. Like I knew God was
Pretty
everywhere,
much.
but like God is like really everywhere. And so
It's
I write about those things. So,
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I was reading. I don't know why I picked up my Bible today, just kind of quiet my mind before we started this, and I opened up to Romans 1, and
mhm.
it's
Is
for
it
his
all?
invisible attributes, that is his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen throughout the creation of the world, being understood through what he has made. And it's like, no, I think that there's 100% something to that because, uh, I mean, he created everything, and it's like his fingerprints are everywhere. You can see his wisdom everywhere. One of the most compelling things in Scripture to me is how relevant it is and how true it is, and like to think of how these proverbs and these passages, all this wisdom and truth, is not just relevant now, it's relevant throughout all time. And
Mm-hmm.
that blows my mind. But like that's one of the I love fly fishing really for that. It gives me an opportunity to like just be quiet and shut up and not think about the world and everything going on around me and the chaos and to just breathe for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's like it's such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I definitely feel that. There's another passage in Romans, like really close to that, that says, all creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed.
yeah,
And I think there's something special about being a believer who goes out in nature and meets a little brook trout in a stream. Like I think there is like something like the word says that that little piece of creation has been waiting for us to come
yeah,
to be revealed to it. And so it's like a special like responsibility when we're out among like the rocks and the mountain laurel and the little critters everywhere. Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm right there with you. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, you mentioned something about response. You have something? My bad.
That no, that's something we're very fortunate to have in this area is some wild trout, and you know we come back with nothing more than photos.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we come back with, and you'll always get asked, well, don't you keep them and eat them? I'm like, no, no. Like, this is like a gift. What we get to do is an absolute gift, and to take that out of the equation is not a question. You know, just to have that moment is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we get towards fall and stuff like that. It's like, man, the colors are insane. And most people, even from our area, never get to see these
Mm-hmm.
insanely colored up fish,
Mm-hmm.
let alone have that moment. It's like, then you're going to take it and end that? Like, no, we're not going there with it.
Yeah.
We
It's
just,
really like the ultimate life hack. Like you see all those like videos about like life hacks on Instagram and stuff, but it's like there's nothing that I don't know. It just you go out there and you experience it, like you said, as a gift, and you just feel refreshed. It's like you finally feel peace again for the first time in however long. And I find that for myself, when I don't go fishing for like a long period of time, it really bothers me. And it's not because I don't get to catch fish. Fish has very little to do with it at the end of the day. But it's being out there in nature and experiencing that, and yes, catching those fish, and it's like you finally feel peace for the first time in so long, and
Mm-hmm.
it really is a gift. It really is, and it's something that I wish more people would try, and more people would get out in nature and just whether it's hiking or fishing or hunting, whatever it is, just
Mm-hmm.
experience creation.
Mm-hmm.
It does change you. It really does.
It does. But I think too, like rushing, like the sound of moving water,
Hmm.
especially, is just so soothing. And, the Bible says that the voice of God is like the sound of rushing water.
Yep.
And you think about like what a lot of white noise is supposed
Yeah.
to mimic that sound. And I'm like, yeah, because God's voice is soothing to us. Like there's something in that our soul responds to, like more than just our minds, more than, just our ears. Like it's
Yeah.
something deeper in us that we're like, yeah, this is a good thing.
Well, and there's studies that show that too. That like I think it's saw a study recently. Something like spending 10 minutes a day in front of like moving water is like really good for you.
Oh, nice.
And it's like why? Like why does what is it about running water that's so special? What's I think part of it is you're experiencing God's creation.
Hmm.
I really do, and it's just a cool thing. It really is.
Yeah, so good. So good.
Yeah. So what do
There's
you have? Do you go ahead?
there's so many good passages around like rivers too. I love that in
Oh my goodness.
I think like Psalm 42, where it's like there's or maybe it's Psalm 46, sorry, that says there's a river that makes glad the city of Jerusalem,
Yeah.
whose waters make glad yeah, anyway, it's such a good passage. And
Well, and then like the ancient civilizations, their whole a lot of them, it was either the sea or the river, and
hmm
if you didn't have that, you just died. Like you just didn't exist because they
yeah,
needed water,
yeah.
and that water's life giving. It really was in a lot of ways, and if you look at like now with like baptism and a relationship with it's Jesus is life giving, and it's just amazing, really is.
Hmm.
So have y'all always been believers, or
Definitely not.
okay, fair enough.
Do you want to share your?
No, have at it.
Okay.
Follow up.
All right. So I became a believer when I was in college. I was raised in a God believing household, but I did
Okay,
not know the gospel. I sat in the same church for years and never once heard the gospel. I could not have told you the point of Jesus.
yeah,
Like
okay,
all. So I went to college, did all the college things, and fell in love with a college boyfriend who I thought was my future. And when we broke up, I was shattered, and I felt God pursuing me like through all of that. And so no real prompting, no big moment or anything like that. Just like finally just that night of that breakup, surrendering my life and being like, I don't know what this means. I don't know who this Jesus guy is, but I feel like you're calling me to follow him, follow you, and whatever all that means. So,
right,
so that's how I went about it. And yeah, I finished out college, joined a church, and kind of I moved around a lot in my 20s to
okay,
different schools because I did most of my adult life as a boarding school teacher and parent.
okay,
So it took me a lot of places that grew my faith in a lot of different ways.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I mean, that's how I came to faith. No, sure.
okay, cool.
I grew up in the Catholic Church.
Oh,
Um,
okay,
yeah, and then life takes place, and you kind of start to grow away from it. And then a handful of years back, I just started going through like a meltdown phase, like just
Mhm.
burning myself into the earth. And I started kind of coming back to it. And, the more I learn it's pretty common that there is some struggles with, early religion, and I had some struggles there. And now it's definitely better. And when I was going through that darker period, even working with a counselor and trying to find a way out, um that was only a part of the equation.
okay,
And the rest of the equation was, you know I should start reading the Bible, and I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then she sent me an app, and I didn't even know an app was a thing at that point. Like, I never, I mean, the old saying with Apple is there's an app for that, but you never
yeah,
really think there's legitimately an app for that.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I just started reading, and I'm like, and to this day, anybody that I encourage to pick it up and read it, I'm like, even if you're not there in faith or belief, what's it going to hurt? And two, treat it as a handbook. Treat it as a guideline.
hmm,
If you pull one thing out of it's useful a day, you're probably ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And that was my basic kind of approach to it.
cool.
Yeah. So this is where the story kind of comes full circle. Wait, sorry, were you?
No, I'm
You're
good.
good. Okay. I'm an interrupter, so
Oh, you're good.
I'm working on that. Um, so the this is where it comes full circle because he had designed these rods to start producing some small water rods and needed people who were going to come out and test the rods with him. And so I was like, I learned how to fly fish. We'd met a couple of years prior, um, but like just been kind of acquaintances and kind of Instagrammed back and forth a little bit. But so when I saw him like post that he was taking people to on small water with his rods, I was like, I'll go. And So he's like, "Have you ever blue lined before?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "This should be interesting." And so, we met up and
Okay.
we're walking around in the woods together. And I just thought, like, I don't know, I didn't know him that well. And I had a certain perception of him, but I was like, I just really need to, like, share my faith. I'm going to share my faith story with him. And I'm going to share the
When you're
gospel.
in the hold on, when you're in the woods,
Yeah, yeah.
like the first date.
No, it wasn't even a
This
date.
wasn't a
It
date.
wasn't
Oh,
a
okay.
date. We didn't date for a few months,
This
but
this was
Oh,
an untangling experience for me.
yeah, this is
huh.
an experiment in how many liters can you lose in one fishing trip, and still keep the flies. So they, we, yeah, he wanted feedback on
Okay.
the rods and stuff. So it was just kind of an adventure into the woods. I really didn't expect that I'd ever talk to him again after that. And
Hey.
so, like, I was like, all right. And because to me, like, he was like really cool and edgy, and he had this big beard, and he had tattoos. So, like, I was like, there, I'm just share the gospel. This guy is gonna think I'm crazy, and he's never gonna talk to me again. and and instead, he was like, actually, like, I grew up in the church, and here's kind of my story, and I've really been feeling like God's been pursuing me.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you use those exact words, but like
No.
that you were feeling this, he was feeling this pull, to faith.
Yeah.
Is that
Cool.
a better way to describe it?
Yeah, and this is kind of one of the dumb things, like, um, that phase that I was at in life, there were so many things that were going wrong.
Hmm.
Like, I don't even know if I could say it was a lot of things. It was probably everything was going wrong. And
When it rains, it pours, right?
yeah, and
Yeah,
I
really poured.
if you want an idea of how far away I was from faith at this point, I was Googling for prayers for peace. And if you look to this day, because I just saw it a few hours ago, I actually have prayers saved in their own folder on my phone that I would go through and I would read every day just to try to find like something centering. And I'm like, oh, okay, we have moved forward a little bit, but it it was a struggle.
Yeah, yeah. So, but after a while, we'd been friends for a little bit, and I asked him, I was like, "Okay, you're a man of morals, you're a man of integrity, you've got like these beliefs that align with Jesus. Like, what is holding you back from following him?" And he had, he just was like, "It's got to be on my own choice and
Yeah,
stuff."
for
So, and
sure.
I really looked at, like, I thought that was like he was counting the cost of following. Jesus says, like, every man must count the cost of
Hmm.
following me. And
Yeah.
he was really like doing that. And so, I was like, this is awesome.
Hmm.
So,
I view it more this way, and we both have a background in skiing, and
Okay.
I lived there for years, and I taught there for years, and I want to know where things can go wrong before they do. And there's a stretch of water too that I know of that I fished it a lot with great success and great fish, and I am 15 feet above the water. And the first time I fished it, I remember saying, if I hook a fish, how do we both make it out of this safely?
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to stress this fish. I don't want to go cartwheeling down a bank and land on my face. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know the method of egress, and I want to know the ins, the outs, the front, and from front to back. And before this was going to be a commitment, like, I'm not going to waste anybody's time getting baptized again. I'm not going to waste anybody's time with this. Like, I need to know.
Yeah.
And that's
So it's a
kind of,
fairly cautious approach, then it sounds like.
yeah.
mhm.
Which I'm kind of the same way. I'm generally skeptical of most things I hear. Not that I'm like I don't believe anything, but like when you tell me something, I want to check it out and see for myself
Hmm.
because people lie and people are wrong and all that stuff. I was a cop for like 5 years. I'm generally a skeptical person, but okay, but yeah,
I don't want to say, hey, thanks for coming out, but this isn't for me.
yeah,
I don't want to waste anybody's time. I
yeah,
just want to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
very cool. So how does fly fishing play into y'all's marriage, if y'all don't mind sharing?
That's a great question. It in To me, I feel like I fish so much less now than than we did when we were dating and when we did like before we met each other or like started
Okay,
fishing together. I feel like we're so busy. I'm part of that, it's like my job, but we've been so busy. So I think fishing like shifts somewhere, like it's a constant in our lives. And
yeah,
sometimes it's the thing that's binding us together and giving us like solace and like renewing our hearts and our minds.
yeah,
And sometimes it's like the elephant in the room. So so like December, we're like, oh my gosh, we haven't fished in such a long time. The last time I touched a fish was so long ago. I have to scroll for like minutes and minutes to find the pictures.
yeah. Been there, done that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So like yeah, right, like but our weather has been really finicky lately, and it's been just so back and forth that, even days we've had, like in the last year, to get out together have been like hit or miss weather wise. We've got
Yeah,
Saturday off together, and we're like, maybe.
Our season has been like a light switch too. We'll go through
Glenn, go
like
away.
like our good hatches, and we'll go through like our really solid, mid late March. If you make it to the end of May, you're doing good, and all of a sudden the switch just flips, and you're
mm,
like, we're out of water and we're over temperature.
Mhm.
yeah,
And if we hit that phase, like that's an all stop. Like
hmm,
we can't do what we normally do.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, I guess we're golfing the rest of this dry, warm summer, and then you're battling. Usually, kind of like mid September when you start getting water temps, you're either battling one of two things. You're still battling a drought. You're dead low, dead clear, or you're in these pressure swings of hurricanes that are
mm,
depositing up here. So
Mhm.
it's a battle.
Yeah. But it's also a
for
constant in
sure.
our lives because I'm always writing about it.
Yeah,
He's always building. And so it's like and when he's not building, he's tying or doing something, so we're always like it's always very present with
yeah.
us. And it's almost like haunting at times. So like I said, it's like the elephant in the room sometimes.
Well, it's
Like
important to have something to bond over as a couple, like a married couple, because
yeah.
we just had our third baby. Our third, it's a boy. Had two girls. I was praying for a boy. Finally, had a boy. But
Oh, congrats.
it's very much like that roommate phase where like you're kind of just living together. It feels like. But if you need something to connect again, and if you don't have that, it can be hard to find.
Mhm.
It can be hard to deal with. So
Yeah, we're really lucky that we share a lot of hobbies.
yeah,
We're lucky that because we both ski.
is that
Um,
where the snowman thing came from?
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, I was wondering.
yeah. Because that was when I had the whole instance with the spinal cord issues. I had to walk away from skiing too
Mm,
because if I had gotten hit, and we live in an area where we overcrowd mountains, um, I could have been quadriplegic, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound like how I want to spend the rest of my life if I have a say in this.
yeah,
And I didn't,
Hmm.
and I'm like, was running through my head, racking my brain for like names and everything. And I think there's two rods that are signed with my first initial and last name. And then I'm like, well, let's just go back to this and let's see how I can whip this in. And the first few times I signed it, I'm like, it doesn't look bad. And I'm like, I kind of like it. And it's kind of an homage to, a life gone by.
Yeah.
And I used it, and now the signature's evolved into something that, I could pretty much sign it with my eyes closed, and
Okay.
it look pretty good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I saw this video the other day. I didn't know this was a thing. It was what do they call them? Snow whales, which are like under the trees.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
tree
had
well.
no idea that was a thing, and that's terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
kills more than avalanches every year.
I
I mean,
had
that's
a
crazy.
student when I lived in Colorado. I had a student that went head first into a tree well, and we had done a safety class on tree well survival. Because there were so many. I lived in Steamboat Springs, and there were so many. And I had a student that like actually went head first into one, skis down the mountain to me, and he's like, Miss Pack, I was a Pack then. And he goes, Miss Pack, I fell in a tree well and I swam out just like the video. And I was like, oh my gosh, you almost died. Like, that's all I'm hearing is you almost died.
Yeah,
It's terrifying because
that's
it's really
terrifying.
disorienting. I guess he like went head first into it, waited a second to figure out like where he was. He stayed calm. He's like, I know what to do,
Right.
and he figured out like which way was up, and then he just like swam out of it. It was so
Is
wild.
that how you do it? You just kind of swim out and you're
That's
good.
what that safety thing said. I mean, I've never put it to the test, but that's
That, that's the same advice for an avalanche: is try to swim.
Okay. That's
yeah.
crazy. I saw this one thing. It's totally separate. I saw this one. Y'all ever heard of the Strid? So it's a river in like Scotland or something, somewhere in Europe. I don't know, but it's this river. It goes from like 30 feet wide and like 5 feet deep to like 5 feet wide and 30 feet deep in like no time, very fast. And it's a really calm looking river. Like it looks like just a regular little creek, but it's the deadliest river in the entire world. And like if people jump in it, the current from the shift it pulls you under and then beats you against rocks, and it's crazy. I was like, what in
With
the world?
It's in training,
Oh,
so that necking creates the velocity that.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
I
ugh,
mean it's just crazy. Yeah, blows my mind that
yeah.
that's even a thing. But it's killed a lot of people because it looks so calm and just natural. But it's a whole thing.
we fish a whole area around here that bless you
Thank you.
that has. All right, knock it off at this point.
I'm sorry.
I always sneeze 3 times.
I usually do. That is a
Never fails.
miracle. You just witnessed a miracle.
That the main river that runs through that all the tribs dump into that we fish. There's a famous rock. It's called Dimple Rock, and it has the notorious history of killing at least one person a year because it generates a big hydraulic at its base. So it got so bad one year that they were talking with engineers, how do we get rid of this rock that eliminates this risk?
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. I'm telling you, you got to be careful out there. You really do. Because
Hmm.
one slip and you could hit your head. I mean, I'm like you. I'm pretty cautious guy, but one slip you could hit yourself, hit your head or something, and you're out. And especially if you fish alone, which I usually do. So you
Yeah.
really gotta be careful.
Yeah, you do. I'm doing on my Substack right now, I'm doing a series on faith and fly fishing analogies.
Okay.
And one of them is like, you
I have
are,
a few. I'll send you some.
huh?
I have a few.
Yeah.
I'll send you some. Yeah.
Yes, and one of mine is that you're just never you don't outgrow fear. I think sometimes as Christians in our walk, we can start to out feel like we're outgrowing the foundations,
Yeah.
right? The 101, faith 101, that we're like too old for that. I've been a
Right.
believer for enough years. I don't need to think about this. And like really and in fly fishing, people can I've seen some arrogance on the streams of like, oh, I don't need to think about that. I don't need a waiting staff, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, you're fishing some really extreme water here. Like, this isn't about how well you can cast. This is about
Yeah.
like, will your feet stay planted on those rocks when like, debris comes under you? You know? So
Yeah.
like that we never really, we should never outgrow the fear of God and in the
True.
foundations of our faith, and we don't ever outgrow, like we don't ever overcome the things of nature that are
Yeah.
like we need to keep taking seriously. Some of I fish with a group of women about once a month, and they always require like the proper gear, and they're like,
Mm.
there's no world in which we're taking you on really fast like deep water and
Yeah.
you're not carrying proper equipment and you're not dressed properly, like you just you're not going that day. So yeah.
Hmm. Very cool. Well, it's been about 45 minutes, so probably end it soon. But thanks for coming on. It's been a joy, and we'll have to keep in contact and with both of
Yeah.
you guys, and yeah, stay in touch. It's been good.
Yeah, anytime. So thanks for
And
having.
before we leave, you are okay. This is my life now. Is that your main spot?
Yeah.
Okay, and then your Snowman Custom Rod Works with underscores between it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Perfect. All right, I'll make sure that's all plugged into the video and all that stuff, which is weird because I've been doing this entire video. I think my video is going to be like lagging the entire time. Go figure.
Really?
But not a big deal. Yeah, I'm using this. I'm kind of new to podcasting. I'm using this thing called OBS, and it takes your video and my video and our audio and puts it all into one video together.
Hmm.
But it's like, it's above my pay grade. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not that smart. But but yeah, I'll put all that in there. But thanks for coming on. It's been a joy, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, sounds
Sounds good.
good. All right.
All right, bye.
Thank you.